Hello. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to class. Welcome to English language class. Yes, good to have you here again. All right, so today we are going to continue from where we stopped the last class. And before we go into today's class, we need to do a quick review on what we started with last week. That's on Saturday. All right, so we started looking at the topic sentence completion and interpretation. Sentence completion and interpretation. All right, so for sentence completion and interpretation, I was able to give 4 points under the types of sentence completion. Sentence completion questions, basically. All right, so the main things that we looked at were the types of sentence completion questions, basically, and this helps us to understand the kind of questions we are going to meet with in our examination. And um, I started with explaining the fact that you are using or you are used to filling the gaps. That question that you call filling the gaps from primary school, right? So this kind of a question is like an upgraded one for your level, right? So usually it's like a sentence completion. That means you have a whole sentence and you're expected to complete that sentence, all right? So there are different kinds of questions you're going to meet with, and I mentioned 4 of them. Number one is the vocabulary based sentence completion. This is where you definitely have to choose options based on what the word means. All right. And I remember that since we started this old lesson on English language, we started with synonyms and antonyms, and I've been mentioning that context is very important. Context is important for synonyms and antonyms. And last week, when we started on sentence completion and interpretation, I mentioned again that context is very important because there's no way you do English language without context, right? So, vocabulary based sentence completion. That means you have to consider context with the meaning of your option to know which is right with what. All right. The second one we looked at is context based sentence completion. This has to do with context. What's the context of the sentence saying? What words are in the sentence, and how do they help you choose the appropriate option for your filling the gap? All right. Then we looked at grammar based sentence completion. And basically, your grammar based is just testing your grammar. All right. So the first one, your vocabulary is being tested, like how you understand the meaning of words. The second one, your knowledge on context is being tested. Then the third one, your grammar knowledge is being tested. So, how well do you know about your grammar rules for you to choose the right option for your empty space? Then, lastly, we looked at filling the blank with logical understanding, filling the blank space with logical understanding. In this case, just your logical knowledge, your logical understanding is being tested. All right, so these are majorly what we looked at starting this class when we started for sentence completion and interpretation. And so today we are going to continue on this same topic, sentence completion and interpretation. But we are looking at another sub heading under this topic. Another subheading under this topic. And the topic or the subheading we're looking at today is sentence structure. Sentence structure. All right. So today we are just going to be looking at sentence structure and how they help you to choose the right option for your empty space. Remember that everything we are doing, starting from the last class, is just for us to understand how we are to choose appropriate options for our empty space. So this one or this topic is mainly about that thing that we call filling the gap. So usually there is an empty space where you're supposed to fill in a word or a phrase. Okay, so how to get or how to fill in the word, how to fill in the appropriate word, how to fill in the appropriate space is what we have been looking at. So, like I said, sentence structure is what we are majorly doing today. And then we are going to be looking at some things that would help us greatly when choosing the appropriate options for our empty space or for our filling the gap options. All right, so the first thing we are looking at is what makes a sentence complete. What makes a sentence complete? I know that right from your GSS1 or maybe even primary school, you've started learning about sentence. If you remember well, we talk about word, we talk about phrase, we talk about sentence, and in sentence you have different types of sentences. You talk about the simple sentence, you talk about the compound sentence, you talk about the complex sentence, etc, etc. But when we talk about sentence, what do we mean by sentence, or what makes a sentence complete? Now, a sentence is not complete if it doesn't express a clear idea. If it doesn't express a clear idea, then it means it is not complete. All right, so sentence has to express a clear idea. All right, when we talk about clear idea, it means that the person you're trying to communicate with must understand or must make a meaning out of what you are saying. Let's look at this example. Um, right. She goes to work. She goes to work. All right. When you say she goes to work, this itself is a clear idea of something. When you hear the sentence, she goes to work, even though this is a simple sentence, it makes meaning on its own because you can make meaning out of it. She goes to work. You have a painting or you have an idea in your head that, okay, there's someone who is female, all right, and the person has a work and the person goes to work. It's complete in itself. But if you remove this word and you have she to work, now you are wondering, what does this person mean? What is this person trying to say? She to work. Okay. She to work. Like, I mean, you want to ask the person, what do you mean by she to work? I mean, did you like omit a word, or you're trying to speak another language that I don't understand, or something like that? So this is incomplete, and it doesn't express a clear idea. But this is complete because it expresses a clear idea. So, sentence, what makes a sentence complete is a clear idea. Once you're able to make a meaning out of a sentence, it means the sentence has a clear idea. And usually, sentence has subject, right? Usually, it has subject, it has verb, and it has object. usually. Sometimes it could be limited to subject and verb, but most times for it to be complete and make meaning, it has to be subject, verb, and object. All right. So this is where you talk about um, Ade killed the goat. All right. So this kind of sentences are usually common when we are talking about SVO, subject, verb, object. So Ade is your subject, killed is your verb, and goat is the object. All right. And if I may refresh our memories, all right, we talk about subject as the person or the thing that the sentence is about. Or in a simpler form, a subject, all right, a subject is the performer of an action. All right, so the doer or performer of an action. All right, so the verb is the action, and the object is the receiver or the recipient of this action. All right, so the subject performs or the subject does the verb while the object receives the verb. All right, so this is like the usual illustration that we have, but subject is not limited to just the doer or the performer. So that's why we say the subject is usually what is being talked about, what or who is being talked about in a sentence. Okay, the person or the thing that is being talked about in a sentence is your subject. Verb is always the action, while object is always the receiver of an action. All right, so your sentence usually comprises your subject, your verb, your object to make a clear meaning. All right, so we are diving deep. We're going to be looking at grammar rules for sentence completion. Grammar rules for sentence completion. All right, so I'm going to wipe this off now. So we're looking at grammar rules for sentence completion. Grammar rules for sentence completion. All right, so it means grammar has rules. And before you can effectively complete a sentence, it means you must follow some rules so that you're not going to be making mistakes, so that you will not be making errors. So that's what we are going to be looking at today. And today we are going to be looking at 5 points under this subheading. 5 points under this subheading. And the first thing or the first rule we are looking at is subject verb agreement. Subject verb agreement. All right. So we have subject verb agreement. All right, before we got here, I was just explaining what subject and verb is. And you know that your subject is that person or that thing that is being talked about in the sentence, or your subject is the performer or the doer of an action in a sentence. We talked about that, and I'm sure that we are very familiar with that. I mean, it's something that usually rings in our head like subject, the person that does something or the person that performs something or something that is being talked about. All right. Now the verb is the action. Now this first rule says subject verb agreement. That means your subject and your verb in a sentence must agree. What do we mean? I'm going to be giving us some examples so that we understand um, what we mean better. All right. So when we talk about agreement, they have to agree in terms of number. In terms of number. So subject verb agreement, agreement in terms of number. And when we are talking about number, we talk about singular and plural. Okay. So when we are familiar that when we talk about you're talking about one, when we talk about plural, you're talking about two or more. Okay. So your subject must agree with your verb. That means if your subject is one, if subject is one, that means your verb must agree with that one subject. You cannot have two subjects and your verb is indicating that your subject is one. You cannot have one subject and your verb is indicating that your subject is more than one. So your subject and your verb must agree in that sentence. So where you have that fill in the gap question and you probably have like a subject and then the empty space requires that you fill it in with a gap, you must understand or you must consider that your subject, if it is one, the verb you're going to be choosing after it should agree with that number one. Now let's look at this example. Okay, so we can have an example like she. Of course, we are familiar with our pronoun. So when you say she or he or it, or you even mention the name of the person, Ade or Mr. Ola. All right. So she, when you say she, you know that that's referring to one person, just one person. So you say she is coming. She is coming. All right. So your subject here is one. Your verb here, right, is indicating that this is one, not two, because you didn't say she are coming. Okay. So she is coming. She is coming. Is here is agreeing with the fact that your subject is one. So this is where we talk about singular or plural. Or if you have an example like he eats or he eats the food. Okay, you have your subject here, and your subject is indicating that this is just one person. This is just one person. Now, when you have the verb eat, it's indicating that this subject is just one person. So you have she is, he is, it is, Ade is, Mr. Ola is, because all of these people are just one person per time. But where you have they, you can have examples like they, all right, the children, okay, the teachers, all right, Ade and Tola. Now, those people in themselves are no longer one. They means that there is more than one person. The children means that there is more than one person. The teachers means that there is more than one person. And Ade and Tola means we have two people. All right. So if your subject here shows that it is plural, then the verb that follow it must agree with that subject. So you cannot say they is, you say they are. Okay, so they are, the children are, the teachers are they and Tola are. So this is what we mean by subject-verb agreement. Okay, so your subject must always agree with your verb. All right. The second one we are looking at is tense consistency. Tense consistency. All right. I'm wiping this off now so we can have the next point on. All right. So we have tense consistency. So what do we mean by tense consistency? When you hear the word tense, you already know that this, or you should know that this is related to verb. Okay, this is related to verb. All right, so for tense consistency, it means to maintain the same tense throughout the sentence. There is a valid reason to switch. If there's no valid reason to switch, then you should maintain the same tense throughout the sentence. Now, let's look at the sentence, he left the house and came to school. He left the house and came to school. Now, let's look at the verbs that we have here. We have left, okay, past tense for leave, and we have came, past tense for come. So he left the house and came to school. Now, there is a consistency here because here is a past tense and it means the next verb in the sentence is also in past tense. So it would be wrong for you if you say he left the house and come to school. Okay? The house and come to school. That would be wrong. That would be wrong. So you have to maintain the same consistency. You have to maintain a consistency, a tense consistency. Consistency. If you're using the present tense, or if by chance your question, let's say that your question is, he left the house and dashed to school. He left the house and dashed to school. All right. And you have options like come, went. All right. Um, you can have maybe even leave again. And you have came, you can have coming, etc. Now, he left the house and came to school, or he left the house and dashed to school. Now, you are expected to fill in something, okay? And you already have something to start what you should be consistent with. So he left the house, meaning he was, okay, going to school. Okay, maybe you can leave this out. So he left the house, and you have four options like this. He left the house and come to school. This doesn't follow the same consistency with this because this is in its past tense and you need something in its past tense. All right. This is not past tense, this is a continuous tense. All right. Leave isn't what we are looking for. This is a base form of the verb come itself. All right. So what you are looking for is came because it follows the same consistency with this. All right. So you would have sentences like that where you already have a verb and then you just need to choose an option that's going to follow the same consistency with what you have already. So if you have a blank space like that and you need to fill it with a verb, you should know that if the verb here is in present tense, then the verb you should choose or the verb you must choose must be in the present tense. If the verb is in the past tense, the verb that you are provided with, if it's in the past tense, then the verb you must choose must be in the past tense. If it is the continuous tense that you have already, then the verb you must choose must be in the continuous tense to follow that consistency. All right. So the third point we're looking at is proper use of article and the. All right. So I'm going to, okay. So the third point, the proper use of articles. Okay, so for the articles, we have a, we have and we have the. And I want to believe that we know how to use these articles. When you see a or a, you know that it's coming with, or it's going to come before a word that has a consonant sound, and an for vowel. So you have a for consonant, you have an for vowel, and then when you talk about d, that's like for specific items. Okay, for specific items, specific object, or specific subject. All right, so you need to understand your proper use of these articles. You need to understand the proper use of this article. So you use, like I mentioned, D for specific nouns, definitely specific nouns. And when you're talking about these articles, you mainly use them for your nouns. All right. So when you use a, you use them for countable nouns, right? Countable nouns. And then they have to start, or they have to come before words that has consonant sound, while your an is used for countable nouns. Okay, countable nouns, but with it comes before words that has vowel sound. Okay, all right. So when we can have examples like um she saw a dog. She saw a dog. She saw a dog. Okay, so you have the article are, and it's coming before this countable noun, because if dog is a countable noun, you can definitely count dog. So she saw a dog. A dog, because D here start with a consonant sound. All right, if you are to transcribe this, you have dog. Okay, dog. So this is a consonant sound. Okay, you can have another example like a university. Okay, a university is a higher institution. Okay, so some people might be confused. You'll be like, okay, this you here, you is supposed to be a vowel, it's supposed to be a vowel letter. Okay, so why are we using a? All right, this is a vowel letter, but it's a consonant sound, because if you transcribe university, it starts with the sound j, j. So you have university. So this sound is a consonant sound. And like I mentioned, when you're talking about using this article a or are, as the case may be, it means you're using it before a consonant sound, not a consonant letter. A consonant sound. Maybe some of us learned consonant letter, but it's not consonant letter, but consonant sound. So a university is a higher institution. And you will hear some people saying a university is an higher institution. It is not an, because what starts this word is also a consonant sound. So this sound is a consonant sound. So if you transcribe it, you have higher. So since this is a consonant sound, the article that comes before it is definitely a. So a university is a higher institution. All right. So when you have you're filling the gap and you need to choose maybe the articles, you already know that for A, you're definitely you're picking the words that has consonant sounds. Okay. So when you use an, of course, we are familiar with an, we know an orange, okay, an orange, and everything else that comes with vowel, and it's a countable noun. So you use an. And then for specific, when you use the article the for specific, you know that when we mean specific, it means something that is standing out from others. Okay, something that you can point to and everyone understands. Now, there's a difference between the bag and a bag. There's a difference between the bag and a bag. Now, the bag is specific. When I say the bag, I'm talking to someone. Check the bag for the pen. The bag, the pen, very specific. So it means the person already knows which bag to go. But when I say check a bag, the person is bound to ask me which bag or which of the bags. But when I say check the bag, probably there's only one bag and the person can see the bag. But check a bag is different. A bag is not specific, while the bag is specific. All right. So that's the proper use of articles when you're on the sentence, when you're doing your sentence completion and interpretation. Now we move to the next point. I'll have to wipe this off. All right. So the next point we have is parallel structure. Okay. Parallel structure. Okay, so what do we mean by parallel structure? It means that items in a list or series should be in the same grammatical form. This looks like point number 2, tense consistency. Okay, it looks like tense consistency, but just that in this case, this is not really about tense. So we're talking about parallel structure, which also means that there should be a consistency in that sentence. So in a sentence where you have items in a list or there's a kind of series, all of them should be in the same grammatical form. Okay, so if your listing is nouns, then you cannot include verb in it. Now let's look at some examples so that we understand what I mean better. All right. She enjoys reading, writing, and to dance. Okay, so we have a sentence like she enjoys reading, writing, and to dance. Now, you can look at this sentence and say, okay, this sentence is grammatically correct. But no, the sentence is not correct because there is no parallel structure. What do I mean? Now, she enjoys reading, she enjoys writing, and what? She enjoys to dance. Is that what you're trying to say? There's something wrong with this. This in itself, to dance, is not wrong when you use it in English language. But for the fact that it's coming in a list where you have this kind of structure, reading, writing, then to dance is a wrong form of answer or the wrong form of choice to put in with this one. So for the sake of it, reading itself is a gerund. Writing here is a gerund. I hope we know that these are not verbs. Okay. Yes, so this is gerund, this is gerund, and this is infinitive. So you cannot combine in a list gerund and infinitive. So the correct thing to have, okay, the correct thing to have is she enjoys reading, writing, and dancing. So reading is a gerund, writing is a gerund, dancing is a gerund. Okay, because of our time, I may not be able to go too deep into what gerund and infinitive means, but let me just give us a quick summary of what they mean so that when we meet with them, we understand. Now, when you talk about gerund, gerunds are usually verbs. Okay, they look like verb, but they're actually nouns. So these words that you are seeing are nouns, they are not verbs. Someone may say, okay, read. Read is a verb. So how is reading? Or even when you say she is reading, you know that the reading there is a verb. Now, context comes to play again. She enjoys reading. Okay? She enjoys something. If you remember what your noun is a name of something. Your A name for something or a name of something. Now she enjoys something. What is that something? That something is reading. She enjoys something. What is that something? That thing is writing. She enjoys something. What is that something? That thing is dancing. Okay, so these are names for activities that these subjects enjoy. So in this context, they are names for activities. All right, names for activities that someone enjoys. This is different from she is reading, she is writing, she is dancing. If you say she is reading, it means she is doing something. She is writing, it means she is doing something. She is performing an action. But in this case, she is not performing an action. She actually enjoys doing something. And the name of that something that she enjoys doing is reading, writing, and dancing. So gerunds look like verb, but they are noun. Okay, gerunds are nouns that look like verb because this in itself without context, they are definitely verbs. So when you talk about gerund is when a verb actually ends with ing, but that verb now acts as a noun. You can see that it ends with ing. So all gerunds ends with ing. So when they end with ing and they function as a noun, you call them gerund. If they end with ing and they still function as a verb, they are still verb. But if they end with ing and they function as a noun, you call them gerund. Then infinitive. When you talk about infinitive, very similar to gerund, just that in this case, you say you have something like to go, to leave. When you see this, you already know that this is infinitive. Okay, so to go, to leave. So a simple definition to that is that an infinitive is the base form of a verb, all right, that we add to. Okay, so the base form, when you talk about the base form, of course, you can have a word like came. The base form of came is come. That's the normal verb. That's what we mean by base form. Okay, you can talk about went. The base form is go. All right, so when you add to in front of this base form, then it means you have infinitive. So wherever you see base form and there is to in front of it, then it means infinitive. So this infinitive can actually act as nouns, they can act as adverbs or as adjective. Just like gerund can act as verb. Gerund acts only as verb, but in the case of infinitive, to go, to leave, to come, to eat, etc., they can act as nouns, as adverbs, or as adjectives. So this is what we mean by infinitive. So going back to parallel structure, okay, she enjoys reading, she enjoys reading, writing, gerund, gerund, and infinitive is not part of gerund, so it's wrong to have it in this list. So to have a smooth consistency, you say she enjoys reading, writing, and dancing. That's what we mean by parallel structure. Parallel structure. Then lastly for today, the last point we are looking at today under grammar rules for sentence completion is use of conjunctions. Use of conjunctions. All right. When we talk about conjunctions, we already know that conjunction is part of speech and they help to link ideas properly. Conjunctions help to link ideas properly. All right. So you have conjunctions like and, but, because, etc., etc. So you can have a sentence like Ade goes to school and reads. All right, so and here is joining or helping us to link this simple sentence and this word together. All right, so Ade goes to school and reads. So we have and here as the conjunction linking the ideas that help us to have a clear understanding or a clear idea of what is being said. So when we talk about the use of conjunction for this, it means that your option, if you're choosing an option for maybe in your examination, you have four options and you need to fill in a blank space. If you're choosing a conjunction, it means your conjunction should properly and appropriately link the ideas. You cannot use a wrong conjunction to link two phrases or to link two ideas. All right. So let's look at this sentence. Okay. If you say he went to the store because he needs groceries. Again, context is coming to play here, and just like subject verb agreement and just like parallel structure, this use of conjunction is similar to them too. So he went to the store because he needs groceries. Okay, let me have that written. So he went to the store because he needs groceries. All right, now we have because as our link. He went to the store. Here is a short sentence. Here is another one. Okay, now this linking this means that there has to be a consistency. It means they are in the same sentence and they must follow the same consistency. So if he went to the store, this indicating past, then he needs groceries should also be in the past. So needs is supposed to be needed and not needs, because This is joining the two ideas together, so they must follow the same consistency. That's the rule for the use of conjunction. So when you talk about conjunction, you cannot talk about one part having present form and the other part will now be having a past form. It's not supposed to be. There has to be a smooth consistency even with the use of conjunction. So the fact that this conjunction is linking the two ideas, then the two ideas must be consistent. All right, so we have come to the end of our class for today, and we're going to take one past question. But before that, let's do a quick review of what we've done today. We looked at sentence structure, and then we started with helping ourselves understand what makes a sentence complete. And we said a complete sentence expresses a clear idea. If it doesn't express a clear idea, then it means that the sentence is not complete. Okay, so if you have questions in your exam and then you're asked to fill in a gap, and after you are done filling in that gap, that sentence does not express a clear idea, it means your sentence is wrong. Your sentence is incomplete. So a complete sentence expresses a clear idea. All right, then we were able to look at the fact that sentence has three major parts that we're used to: the subject, the verb, and the object. Then lastly, we started looking at grammar rules for sentence completion. And then we looked at 5 of them. We talked about the subject verb agreement, which means your subject must agree in terms of number with verb. Then number 2, we looked at tense consistency. Your tenses in your sentence must be consistent. Then thirdly, we look at proper use of article a, and the. Then the fourth one, we looked at parallel structure, under where we looked at gerund and infinitive. And lastly, we looked at the use of conjunctions, where we have a conjunction linking two ideas. Those two ideas must go hand in hand. All right, there must be a smooth consistency also with those ideas. All right, so we're going to be looking at a past question from 2015, UTME 2015. All right, you can find these exam questions on the app. All right, the CBT session UTME 2015. All right, this question is usually categorized with nearest in meaning and opposite in meaning. So just locate this question and every other fill in the gap questions and see what you can do with them using the points that we have learned today. All right, so we have a question like this. This is from 2015. Okay, so it says choose the option that best fills the gap. Choose the option that best fills the gap. So we have the question: most of his personal dash stolen. Most of his personal dash stolen. All right, so we have options. We have 4 options. We have option A as effect where, B affect was, C effects was, D defect. Now we need to understand, there's some things we need to understand, and of course context is in it. You need to understand the meaning of your options. So when you talk about effects, okay, the word effect refers to personal belongings or personal items. All right, so since we have an idea of what effect means because we see it come up here twice, so it means personal belongings. All right, so if you say most of his personal belongings as effect stolen, now you need to understand a kind of consistency. And what we are looking at is our first point that we looked at today, that is subject verb agreement. Subject verb agreement. Now, the subject here is most of his personal, okay? Most of his personal items. The subject. Most, when you talk about most, it means you are talking about something that is more than one. Something more than one. So, if you're talking about something more than one, do you use were or do you use was? So, for singular, you use singular with was. All right. So if it was effect was, then you could have said it is effect was. Again, do not forget that this means personal belonging. All right. So most of his personal belongings, okay, most of his personal belongings, plural. So we have the option of where, we have affect was, which is not part of it. We have the option of defect, something wrong, something not in the right frame. Okay. So we have effects was plural and then singular, which means it's not right. Also this, not right. Defect, not what we are looking for. This is obviously not part of our options because it's obvious that what we are looking for is under effect. So we are looking at effect where and effect was. So effect plural where here is agreeing with effect. So we talk about the subject verb agreement. All right, so that means that this is our option, option A. Most of his personal effects were stolen. So we have option A as our option. So this is from 2015 UTME past question. And like I mentioned, you can go to the app, the CBT, and then check out this past question and see what you can do with filling in the gap questions. All right, so I'm going to see you in the next class. That's going to be on Wednesday, same time, and then we continue from where we stop. All right, so you're going to be having your next class in about 10 minutes from now. That's biology. So stay tuned. All right, bye bye.